Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, welcome into today's program, because today we have a number of great stories brought to you by, well, Ralph Bond. And Ralph is our science and technology trends correspondent for us here at Computer America. And we really appreciate the time, the energy, the effort, and the consistency, because every Friday he joins us to share a number of stories that, you know, are going to make the world a little bit better. It's not hard to find, especially with AI. Even though AI is such a cool tool, it at the same time is a bit of a downer, with some of its promises. And again, it's not hard to find really bummer tech stories. Because as much as it improves our lives, there's some drawbacks. So, but that's not the focus of today. Today's going to be a little bit happier, and everyone, we're going to send you off on a Friday with something to maybe talk about, something a little uplifting. So, but before we get to that, computeramerica.com, it's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes. Currently going through a remodel, so pardon our dust, but I'm hoping this weekend I finally have time, and we'll get through all of the things I've been saying I was going to do. But ladies and gentlemen, I promise, computeramerica.com, watch me work in real time. It'll be fun. With that being said, wherever podcasts are heard on all the other sites, all the other places, you can of course find our shows every single week. So with that being said, let's go ahead, bring on Ralph, and just get started. And as I said before, he has been a longtime Computer America contributor, but is now our science and technology trends correspondent. And we're very happy to have him back. Ralph, how you been?
Great. And by the way, to pick up on what you were saying a moment ago, especially if you're brand new to the show, folks, every Friday, Ben and I provide you an oasis of positive news thanks to the world of science and technology. So you're going to walk away from today's show going, I'm optimistic. There is hope. And we talk about everything from robotics and medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, space research, physics, you name it. Some of it's very serious. Some of it's kind of quirky and goofy. It all depends. But today's show is a great example of the mixed bag we bring to you every week.
Absolutely. And I think story number one, if you're watching the video portion, we're going to show videos and pictures and stuff like that as we kind of go through it. But for those who are simply listening in the car, or you're doing so distractedly, don't worry. We're going to do our best to describe these things. And you can see the picture there. We're going to show a video here in a second. But yeah, drones. They're in the news a lot, usually for more explodey reasons. But hopefully this one, not the case. And it's honestly a very unique way to turn kind of a negative of power lines into a potential positive. So, Ralph, story number one.
Yes, I couldn't resist this headline. The story comes from Fast Company. Headline, how could you resist this? Get ready. This genius vampire drone is designed to fly forever. The drones feed on electricity from power lines to ensure they can keep flying. Wow. I mean, I immediately had to jump on this. So let's get into this story. It's a lot of fun. And again, as Ben was saying, computeramerica.com, get the show notes. It'll have the links if you want to dive deeper, because what Ben and I do is just give you the highlights of these articles. You can get so much more information if you get the show notes and follow the links. So with that said, here we go. Engineers from the University of Southern Denmark have developed an ingenious technology that enables a drone to fly practically forever without ever having to return to the ground. The implications of this are, wow. needless to say.
Very,
And it
very
says,
cool.
goes on, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
No, I'm saying very cool, and kind of watching the video, and before you even get to the article, my immediate reaction is, the FAA is in charge of drones. For those who don't know, you have to kind of register with them, and they say, fly in parks, fly with nothing overhead, and don't go near power lines. And this story kind of flies in the face of that. But please continue.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. These guys have figured out a safe way to make this work, which is just fascinating. So it goes on to say, thanks to a docking mechanism, its sensors, and of course, artificial intelligence system, the drone can recognize a power line every time it needs to recharge its batteries. The drone can approach a high voltage cable and cling to it from below, sucking electricity like some kind of electric vampire. Love it. The development team explained, quote, the drones would be able to essentially live on the grid and operate completely autonomously for extended periods of time with no need for human interaction. Wow. The concept of using power lines to charge drones originated in 2017 when Imad Ebed, that's spelled E-B-E-I-D, first name E-M-A-D, a professor at the University of Southern Denmark, was exploring drone applications and found power line inspection to be an area of, I would say, potential interest. So he was looking, where could drones help power lines? But to your point, Ben, you're not supposed to fly a drone near a power line. It could destroy the drone and so on and so forth, and also cause problems with the power line.
And for anyone who has seen those long, vast stretches of power lines, they go over mountains, they go through forests, places that don't have roads, and so I guess it's helicopter or drone. Makes sense.
Oh, you're right on target. In fact, that's exactly where the article goes. Right. Next, it says Professor Abed noted that the current power line inspection process, which relied on helicopters and ground personnel, was both costly and inefficient. He thought of drones as the natural alternative to this very expensive maintenance effort. These flying machines can be remotely controlled or even fly autonomously to watch over power lines, or monitor them, rather. And here's how this University of Southern Denmark drone works. The researchers outfitted the drone with grippers, basically an insulated clamp that grabs the power line without conducting electricity to the drone itself. Ding, step one. Next, the grabbing mechanism doesn't require motors to work. The drone's software recognizes when the gripper is in the right place and activates an electromagnetic mechanism that snaps together, securely attaching the system to the power line. The motorless design is important because the designers didn't want to add more weight or additional points of failure to the system. Right? It's a genius solution. When the drone batteries are full, a circuit cuts the current. The magnet stops working and the grip opens, freeing the drone to fly again. It's so cool. And here's some more details here, a little geek out. The charging is done inductively and thus only relies on the current, not the voltage of the power line, the team explains. That's interesting. This induces a current in the drone's energy harvester, a metal coil that works very much like your phone's wireless charger. Oh, yeah. I've got one of these things on my nightstand where I could just pop my iPhone on the tray. I don't have to plug in anything, the wireless charger. So this is the same technology these folks are using. The current is then used to charge the drone's battery. And depending on the cable's voltage, a 9.4-pound drone will need to spend anywhere from 30 minutes, this is quite a long range here, anywhere from 30 minutes to 6 hours on a power line to fully recharge. Even so, the fact that it doesn't have to come back to Earth, it doesn't have to be plugged in someplace for a period of time, is a pretty interesting premise, even though there's that possibility of up to 6 hours to recharge.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot less chance of it landing in something, it's not supposed to land in, or animals or people. It's just, up and out of the way. It's a very, and again, for those watching the video portion, you can, this part here in the video, it's about 155 in the video. You can see it kind of go up, guides itself, and then just does that snapping motion and gets onto the power line. Very, very efficient.
Yeah, very, very clever stuff here. And then some more from the article here, pardon me. Finally, after 7 years of development, they got it all working. When the drone detects that its battery is close to its lowest level, it goes into search and capture mode. Its camera activates and identifies the nearest power line, maneuvering under the cable and slowly ascending as the video shows. A cable guide engages and begins to move to make contact. When the guide contacts the cable, it directs the drone upward in such a way that the open gripper aligns perfectly with the power line cable. As it ascends, the gripper closes with the two sides of the clamp closing over the high tension cable. After connection to the power line, the magnetic control circuit, which we mentioned previously a moment ago, is activated to close the clamp safely and quite fast, too, as the video shows. It is at this point the electric vampire, as the author of the article calls it, begins to suck energy using the inductive charger the University of Southern Denmark team invented. Wow. Fun story.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the overall kind of draw from the cable isn't anywhere near, like a noticeable effect. I'm sure it's just, really drawing the ambient electricity that's flowing through it. I don't know. It's so cool because, again, it's turning something that, as they pointed out, was so inefficient and took so much manpower and helicopters, and to just be able to throw drones out. I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of research and, that needs to go along to it, but it seems like a perfect application for something that, could be automated and, would save so much time and energy and money.
Well, yeah, and Ben, I'll add a little local color to this story. I'm in the Northwest, folks. If you're new to the show, I'm based just outside of Portland, Oregon, in a town called Hillsboro, which is a giant Intel Corporation town, by the way. But here in the Northwest, in Washington, Idaho, Oregon, and of course in British Columbia too, last year and several previous years, unfortunately, there have been these terrible, terrible forest fires. Some of them, last year, I think it was, caused by faulty power line issues with electric power lines. So if you could have an army of these drones that can perpetually stay in the air monitoring and checking things, maybe some of that could be avoided. They could go out and do maintenance ahead of a problem that causes a devastating wildfire. So inspecting power lines is not just a trivial thing. It can be a life or death situation, frankly.
Yeah, no, and that of course adds even more urgency to it because, power lines aren't going anywhere, but people are getting closer and closer to them. So no, perfect story. I like it a lot. And I know that, our family friends were, kind of worried about it, but I can safely say, no, this is a good story. Story number one's good. Story number two, also about electricity, but not quite a drone. It's a little bit bigger than a drone. Yeah, and Ralph, I think last time that cargo ships were really in the news, you had what was the not Evergrande, the giant ship that kind of turned sideways in that shipping lane over in the Suez Canal and whatnot.
Yes,
these things are massive. They are hard to control, and it's. They're such when one cargo ship goes into service, it lasts for decades. It does so much work. It provides so much, kind of economic value. And it's also really cool to see that they aren't just stuck in the past. And story number two really goes to show that, they're looking to revolutionize even, the most, I guess, wasteful things out there. So story number two, long story short, electric cargo ships, Ralph, what's happening?
Yeah, this is a really great story from an outfit called interestingengineering.com. Great outlet, by the way, folks. Check it out. And the headline here, of course, caught my attention right away. World's largest electric cargo ship set sail recently. And actually, this is a story that comes out of China, and we've got plenty of links and so forth in the story here in the show notes. Come out to computeramerica.com to get that. We have the image of the boat itself, or ship, I should call it that. And again, this is profound because, Ben, over the past couple of years, we've talked about retrofitting cargo ships with modern columnar-like sails. So add wind energy, pardon me, to the traditional fossil fuel, or hybrid cargo ships that have not only those sails, but maybe have some electric motor along with the fossil fuel. And so all these kinds of things have been going on for several years in the shipping industry as they desperately try to cut down on the consumption of fuel. Here, however, we're talking about all electric cargo ship. That's what's so interesting. And it just recently started going into service. So here's the story. Greenwater 01, we'll just call it Greenwater 1 is the name of the ship. The world's largest electric container ship has started regular service. This is happening now. So sometimes we do stuff that's trends, that's maybe in the future, but every once in a while I can't resist something like this because this is I guess you could call this a legitimate trend in the sense that here it is. Here's the largest all-electric cargo ship now in service. More to follow. That's the trend part of it. How about that? We'll argue that case. Yeah. So it started regular service between China's Shanghai and Nanjing municipalities and developed by China Ocean Shipping Group. The ship is expected to save 3,900 kilograms or 8,600 pounds of fuel for every 100 nautical miles it sails. Wow, that's something. Yeah. The ship is equipped. How does this work? So the ship is equipped with a main battery box of more than 50,000 kilowatt hours. So no matter what you do with this ship, it comes with that basic battery there. But to increase travel range, and you have flexibility here, which I think is kind of ingenious, to increase travel range, additional battery boxes, each with 1,600 kilowatt hours of electricity. So the individual boxes, the additional boxes are not as much, of course, as the basic box, which is 50,000 kilowatt hours. So each additional battery box, 1,600 kilowatt hours of electricity can be added, and each box is about the size of a standard 20-foot shipping container. Wow. And then here's more about how this configuration can work. You can put up to 24 battery boxes on this vessel. And the vessel, by the way, is 394 feet long or 120 meters long and 78 feet or 24 meters wide. The vessel can complete a trip that consumes 80,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. And while any other non-electric ship would consume for the same trip over 15 tons of fuel for the same journey. That gives you a profound talk about savings of fuel and emissions.
And I think it's really interesting that, it's built with the standard 50,000 kilowatt hours, which, sounds like a lot of energy to me. But then they made it kind of adaptable. Like you said, you can do 24, you could probably do even more than that to increase the length. But that's a very adaptable solution to the problem of fuel.
Agree completely. And the vessel, no surprise, carries an intelligent ship system. I'm sure it's artificial intelligence for navigation and energy efficiency and other functions as well. And the ship's battery-powered propulsion offers a maximum speed of 12 miles per hour or 19.4 kilometers per hour. Now, what I don't know, and I should have researched, and I apologize, I should have said, well, what's a typical cargo ship speed? Is this below it, at it, above it? Maybe we can Google that right now and find out as we go here. It's expected that the ship can reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 2,918 tons, which would be equivalent to 2,035 family cars a year, or the carbon dioxide emission reduction of 160,000 trees. So pretty interesting. Salute to our friends in China for this one. This is pretty darned interesting.
Yeah, and really, it looks amazing. And just a quick Google search, it says that cargo ships, can go, depending on, kind of what they're doing. I'm sure this is, like you said, this one's going between two cities in like a coastal region, so it's not open water. But they say typically it can go 20 to 30 miles an hour, cargo ships.
So it's about half.
Yeah. So it's about half, but hey, maybe it doesn't need to go as fast as others because it's doing a much shorter routine trip. But still, that's a lot of fuel savings. And you can see, I kind of paused it there. They even made like the battery packs. Like it's not giant double A's. They look like shipping or cargo containers themselves.
Yes.
And made it very adaptable. So overall,
clever stuff. And it's another example, Ben, I'll editorialize here or soapbox for a second.
Yeah.
Tells me again how I wish we had a world of science cooperation. The Chinese, we've had adversarial issues with with the Chinese and so forth. God, I wish we could all just stop all this foolishness, join hands in science and technology, and go forward and save the world. There's if you want to hear more about China and the woes that we kind of have with them, you can tune in the other 4 days of the week. But when it comes to China, they have been embracing green technology, and this has a lot to do with their business and their style of governance and whatnot. Ralph, they have been just building so many solar panels, so many batteries, so many green electric vehicles, and now electric shipping containers. They are electrifying and turning everything green, like as fast as they consumed coal, and it's still there, but they are embracing green technology to the same degree, and it is very impressive to see. And Ralph, like you said, you kind of hope that everyone is kind of better off for it, that this green technology is going to be an overall plus to everyone, not just China, not just the US, but to the planet. That would be ideal. So overall, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see, there was a video there that we played of the shipping container, showed kind of more of the systems, but overall it's a very, very, important update because Ralph, I mean, it was like, way back when, like the Prius was like big news like 15 years ago. We're barely able to get like small cars to have the batteries that they need to go from A to B, and here we are with an entire like one of if not the largest vehicles or kind of moving things all on battery. That's a huge advancement in just a decade. So kudos to them. Kudos to everyone who did that, and very cool. Story number 2. Story number 3. And generating all that electricity, could still come in the form of coal plants, could come in the form of nuclear reactors, could come in the form of so many things. How about a different take on solar power? I think we did one story that kind of touched on this, Ralph. Like it was like an idea, and this takes it a step further. So story number 3. Yeah, story number 3. And what you're alluding to is the idea of, hey, can we generate energy in space, in orbit, and transmit it back to the Earth to help create a super clean, green form of energy? And last year, I think it was in the last calendar year, Ben, we did a story about MIT and their proposals for these massive kind of like solar panel-y like things, or that would be in geodesic orbit and would beam down energy. Well, this is very closely related to this. So this comes from space.com, great outlet. Headline: Space-based solar power may be one step closer to reality thanks to this key test. So it's talking about a key laboratory test, proof of concept milestone very recently achieved that may propel this idea of generating energy in space to help us here on Earth. So that's the context, that's the setup here. So let's get into the story. And there's some great illustrations that are in the show notes and in the articles as well, of course. So a recent first of its kind lab demonstration shows how solar power transmission from space could work. So talking about a test that puts us a step toward really implementing this. The demonstration carried out by UK-based startup company called Space Solar, and their website's very interesting, tested a special beaming device that can wirelessly transmit power 360 degrees around. That has to do with being able to compensate for moving around with the Earth as we rotate. That would be important for a potential future space-based power station, as its position toward the sun and Earth would change over the course of each day due to our planet's rotation. And the lab proof of concept demonstrator these folks came up with is a key component of the Cassiopeia space-based solar power plant concept that is being developed by this outfit in the United Kingdom called Space Solar. The company envisions that Cassiopeia would be in space potentially within a decade, providing gigawatts of clean energy much more efficiently than solar plants on Earth. Cassiopeia would be placed in geostationary orbit, a path about 22,000 miles or 36,000 kilometers above the Earth. I think we're all familiar with geodesic orbits. And while the lab demonstrator used in the lab experiment was 5 feet or a half meter wide, a very little tiny thing. Yeah. Cassiopeia would ultimately, but the idea, Ben, is it would ultimately be a vast modular structure, some 1.1 miles or 1.7 kilometers across in space. Can you imagine that?
Well, and that's the part here about a minute 5 seconds into the video, they kind of show this. Somehow they got this giant, like, think like the plywood at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and it's just like giant shelves of it, and it's just giant racks of solar panels, and then they have like these little autonomous building satellites that are going to go up there, and then there you go, you can see the entire array that they're assembling in space. So
that's something.
Yeah, it's very science fiction-y, but hey, you know, if you can imagine it, maybe they can implement it.
Yeah. No, this is, again, the emphasis of the article and the significance of the story from let's say, a trend point of view is somebody coming up with, they think, a practical and implementable, it's a challenge, but I mean, they think, folks, we can do this. It is taking it from theory. Maybe we could do this. No, this is, look at us. Here's a recipe, a step-by-step recipe for this. So going on, it says the plant consisting of large, lightweight solar panels and a set of mirrors collecting sunlight would be assembled in orbit by robots, as your video was showing, and would require 68 launches of SpaceX's next-generation Starship mega rocket to deliver all of its components to space. Excuse me. So it's a pretty big project, but doable. That's the point. The recently tested lab component will ensure that the giant satellite has a constant view of both Earth and the sun in order to provide clean energy 24/7. Unlike solar plants on Earth, which only work during daytime and get affected by bad weather. That's another point about that 360-degree thing I mentioned at the beginning of the article as well. Electrical power generated by Cassiopeia again is the name for this whole system, would be converted into high-frequency radio waves, which would be beamed down to Earth, where they would be transformed back into electrical power. Mr. Tesla is applauding in his grave right now, by the way.
Yes.
The demonstration also tested a precision pointing system that would ensure the waves don't pose any safety risk to humans living around the receiving station. Key point, right? And let's see, here we go to round things up. And again, there's so much more detail in the article itself, folks. Come out to computeramerica.com, get the show notes. But here's the wrap up. A single Cassiopeia plant could power more than 1 million homes. Researchers estimate solar power plants in space, although difficult to build, would produce energy 13 times more efficiently as compared to those on Earth, as their view of the sun is not obscured by any atmospheric gases or elements or weather and so on. So pretty cool stuff. Again, the key here is a formula for implementation versus a theory.
Yeah, it's, if you look at the progress that space already has, I mean, SpaceX is already launching hundreds or thousands of satellites. We already have tons and tons of satellites in space. Like, 50 years ago, hey, it was big news. Everyone sat around their televisions and watched, kind of the moon, or that was like 60 years ago. Anyways, watch the moon landing, and it's like, oh, space, what a hard thing to conquer. And here we are, we're doing it. We are sending stuff up to space constantly. It's barely even big news whenever there's a rocket launch. And now we're getting to the point where, hey, let's do something really efficient. Let's do something really powerful with this. And that's, hey, generating this electricity. So very cool. And hey, it has the recipe for success, like you said. We can only hope. So nice one. Story number 3. Story number 4, we're going to go ahead and, well, I kind of gave my family the sneak peek of your stories before. And as soon as I said scientists make breakthrough in chronic pain treatment, pretty much every hand in the room shot up and said, "Ooh, me first." So, story number 4 is should be exciting for anyone out there who, let's face it, at some point we're all going to be dealing with chronic pain. It's a pretty universal thing, and treatments are are all over the place. Some of them more effective, some of them less, some of them dangerous. Story number 4 has a lot of promise. So, Ralph, please.
It sure does. And again, if you're a longtime listener, viewer of our show, you know that we often end our Friday Science and Technology Trends show with something from the medical technology community. And the headline here is great. And it's not that it's wrong or inaccurate, but this is much broader than just a pain treatment application. And you're going to find out as we get into the story. So I'm not quite sure why the author zeroed in on just this aspect.
I mean, it's a catchy headline. So
it's a catchy headline. It comes from Newsweek, a great article. We have links. I also have another link to a formal scientific paper that was published on this as well, which is very good. Actually, what the headline of the article I would have done is scientists have developed tiny robotic nerve cuffs, think of like a cuff around something, to diagnose and treat neurological disorders. That's really in my opinion, the headline, but I think they went for something more punchy, and I get it. But here's the story. Scientists at the University of Cambridge's Department of Engineering have developed tiny robotic nerve cuffs to diagnose and treat neurological disorders. So the treatment of neurological disorders could include pain treatment. That's the point I'm making. The flexible devices offer a safer, minimally invasive alternative to today's diagnostics and could also be used by amputees to control prosthetic limbs. So its implications are much broader than just pain management.
Because when I first kind of glossed over this, I was like, okay, so they're going to be restricting the nerves, and you could dull the pain by preventing it. So, but they're actually like augmenting it. They can read it, they can, prevent it, they can induce it. Like this is going to be an overall nerve like stimulant / like interface. That's really cool.
Yeah. And again, diagnostic and neurological treatment of disorders this is a big potential step forward, folks. So again, thanks to University of Cambridge. So today, many neurological disorders are diagnosed and treated using outdated, bulky electrode arrays that carry a high risk of nerve injury. And here comes a quote from the lead professor on this. Quote, "Nerves are small and highly delicate." Oh, there goes my phone in the background. Hope that doesn't bother you too much. No, you're good. "Nerves are small and highly delicate. So anytime you put something large like an electrode in contact with them, it represents a danger to the nerves." Sure, that makes sense, said Professor George Maliaris, a professor at the University of Cambridge's Department of Engineering and the leader of this research. A really interesting guy, by the way. To overcome these difficulties, Professor Maliaris and his colleagues at the British University used modern soft robotics technology to create small, flexible cuffs that can wrap around the nerves without the need for surgical sutures and glue. In fact, all they need is a tiny amount of voltage to change shape and form a self-closing loop around the target nerve cells. Wow, just let that sink in. That's so it's mind-blowing.
It's again probably using that, and it usually happens, especially with medical technology. Like they use the word robot, but it's a very simple, I guess, kind of use of the word robot. It's something that does like a preformed function, more so robot than like it's not like Boston Dynamics inside your bloodstream or in your brain. It's a very simple thing, but still very effective.
And it goes on with another quote here from someone on the research team as well. It says, quote, "What's even more significant is that these cuffs can change shape in both directions and be reprogrammed, said one of the co-authors of the university's statement about the research, going on with the quote, "This means surgeons can adjust how tightly the device fits around a nerve until they get the best results for recording and stimulating the nerve." Wow. And the devices have so far been demonstrated in rats. Thank you, rodents, mice, rats, and pigs, and all you guys out there giving it up for us. But there you go. So they've tested this on rats so far, with the results being published in the journal Nature Materials. And we have a link to this very scholarly article if you want to super geek out on this. But the team plans to perform further testing of the devices in other animal models. So this is early research, but profound for the treatment of neurological disorders and for diagnosing neurological issues in the human body down the road. So there you go.
Very, very promising that, the more that we look at the brain and all the little details that we're finding out about it lead to, new research, new possibilities, such as this research here. So, things that before you're like, oh, that's not going to be curable, or, amputees that are going to have prosthetics that can't be controlled with the brain. Hey, there's constant research going on. So perfect. Love story number 4 and great medical news. Ralph, for those who are following along in the show notes, because those are up by the time that you are listening to this, they may notice honorable mentions. And, when your first honorable mention is NASA, you're like, how did NASA not make the top 4? Spoiler alert, it's not top 4. They're great stories that we just don't have time for. So let's give the nice folks the headlines, at least, of the honorable mentions.
There you go. So as Ben said, it's not that these aren't important stories. They're very important, but we just don't have time. But I just couldn't leave them on the table. I wanted to share them with everybody. So headline here from NASA itself, from their press release outlet online, headline, NASA launches solar sailing mission. A really interesting story, folks. Come out and get those show notes and get the links and check this out. There's a great YouTube video as well. So very cool story. The next one comes from sciencenews.org. Great outlet also. Scientists develop a sheet of gold that's just 1 atom thick. And you might say, well, okay, that's nice, but so what? Well, you'll get the so what if you come out, get the show notes and read the article. It's really, really cool stuff. Next one. Headline from techexplore.com. New quantum material promises up to 190% quantum efficiency in solar cells. Another energy-related story for us this week. Check that one out. And last but certainly not least, we've talked over the last couple of years, Ben, on and on about research all over the planet with something called sodium-based batteries. This is a big deal because if we can make efficient batteries that rely on good old sodium instead of lithium and other precious metals and that kind of stuff, we could be in a new world of wonder when it comes to all electric technology. So the headline here comes from a news outlet that's associated with MSN called The Cool Down. Headline, scientists at the Osaka Metropolitan University in Japan make breakthrough in production of salt-based battery technology. And they say this process they've come up with makes making viable salt-based batteries easier to do. So a profound implication for where we're going in the future with batteries.
Yeah, you got to be able to make the batteries if you're going to replace them. And by the way, I just want to draw some quick attention to the second honorable mention, because we've talked about graphene a lot. And, one of the big barriers is like the cost of getting it out there and producing it. And now you've talked about goldine, which is like graphene, but made of gold. And I'm like, if there was any way to make graphene more expensive, the scientists are like, what if we just made it out of solid gold? And they're like, brilliant, do it. That will just... that'll make it cheaper. So, but no, still fun stories, everyone. And Ralph, I want to thank you so much for putting these together. Everyone, once again, the show notes are up. They're ready for you. And ladies and gentlemen, until next time, have a great week. Do something fun this weekend. We'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.